Welcome to another edition of Speak Up Presents. Today we're going to be talking about Pride being back in Hillsborough County. And we are very fortunate tonight to have with us 4 guests. I'm going to have you meet 3 of them right now. We'll bring another one on midway through the show. We have Rebecca Steele, Becky Steele from the ACLU of Greater Tampa, correct?
West Central Florida.
West Central Florida. We got that wrong on our graphics, but you'll all remember it's the ACLU of West Central Florida. Welcome and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Becky. Nadine Smith of Equality Florida. Welcome. So glad you're here.
Thanks for having us.
And Curtis Stokes from the NAACP, your first vice president.
Yes, I am.
And it's the NAACP of Hillsborough?
Hillsborough County branch of the NAACP.
Great. Well, I'm so glad you're all here.
Thank you.
Before we get into the big issue that's facing all of us in Hillsborough County, and I mean, I think all of us, let's talk about your organizations first. And Becky, could you talk about the ACLU for those people who don't know what you do or
Sure.
misunderstand what you do?
Well, and that's one thing I get. My mother, who's a Republican, regularly sends me flyers that she gets talking about how, the ACLU is ready to destroy America. So it's good to talk a little bit about what we really do. ACLU stands for the American Civil Liberties Union, and we are a group of citizens who are dedicated to preserving the rights in the Constitution and the civil rights laws of the country. We have people of all different parties, all different faiths, all different beliefs, but we're united in our dedication to preserving civil rights.
Sounds like something we do down here at Public Access.
Yes, just a little bit.
There's a lot of conservatives here and a lot of liberals here and a lot of progressives and Green Party and all kinds of people in between. And we're here doing the same thing, trying to preserve the right of people to speak and to have free speech. But I know I haven't written a check to the ACLU in a long time, and I should have, and I'm sorry, and I'll do it.
You can fix that easily.
But I did it steadily for many, many years. And sometimes I'd write that check and say, I hate that they defended such and such a group. And I think about it and think about it and think about it and then say, yep, you got to write that check. And we do have to write that check.
Well, we do. We defend a lot of people that are unpopular and people that are surprising. For example, we did an amicus brief on behalf of Rush Limbaugh this year, but it was for the principle of the privacy of his medical records, because we felt if he didn't have privacy of medical records, then none of us do. So what we say is that our client is really the Constitution, not necessarily the people that we represent in the court cases.
And since you represent the ACLU and your organization was so instrumental in helping us to win our injunction against the county, thank you from everybody who watches Public Access
Well, you're
Television,
welcome.
Tampa Bay Community Network, and all the help we got from Paul Rabin. He was just
Paul
a
was great.
wonderful guy.
Shelley Reback was wonderful
And
too.
Shelley, too.
They're fantastic lawyers, and we really owe a lot to them.
Yes, we do. Nadine, talk about Equality Florida.
Well, Equality Florida is a statewide organization that was born here in Hillsborough County in the fight to end discrimination based on sexual orientation in Hillsborough County and in the city of Tampa. We're statewide. We work to change the laws in Tallahassee, but we work very closely with a network of organizations and members across the state.
How many members do you have?
Gosh, we communicate
Or you have a
with,
database of
yeah,
just tens of thousands, don't you?
really, more than 60,000 folks across the state are supporters of ours, and this part of the state where we originated is where our largest base of support exists.
Where it started off as the Human Rights Task Force
Yes,
long ago. And,
many years ago.
and I served on your, I should disclose, because I
Yeah.
served on your advisory committee.
You did on our advisory board many years ago.
Many years ago.
It's been amazing. This fight has brought out so many people that I haven't seen probably in 15 years from those early days. But brand new activists and folks who never thought of themselves as political, and folks who haven't been at the forefront in a very long time have really stepped up because they're so outraged by what the county's done.
Yeah. Curtis, the NAACP.
The NAACP.
And if people don't know what that is by now, but go ahead.
The NAACP is a civil rights organization born out of the Niagara movement, where we had Caucasians, African Americans, that saw a need to promote civil rights laws and racial equality in regards to race, social justice, educational justice, and economic justice in the United States.
And your organization has a long history
Yes.
of being active in Hillsborough County. You might name a couple of things, just like
Exactly.
Becky did.
We work very closely with the ACLU in the issues of defending civil rights, defending discrimination at all levels. And we try wholeheartedly to be staunch defenders of civil rights issues as it relates to race, sex, and sexual orientation.
And didn't the NAACP play a big role in the school desegregation
Yes, we
question
did.
and the Brown case?
Yes, Brown versus Board of Education, Plessy v. Ferguson. The NAACP was very adamant in the fight to end racial discrimination as it related to school to education.
Right. And so full disclosure too, I was an NAACP appointee to the Hillsborough County Biracial Advisory
Yes.
for about 6 or 7 years.
We like to say, Dr. Horton, our president, likes to say that we're all members of the NAACP. Some of us just haven't paid our dues yet. Because
That's good.
He makes light of, in context, what he means is that we're all defenders of civil rights and defenders of what's right for all human beings.
Here I got an email from my son yesterday, which I think I forwarded over to you, that here Hillsborough County and this latest action by the County Commission was actually covered in the New York Times yesterday,
Oh.
which was just absolutely incredible.
that.
Nadine, why don't you sum up what occurred here, and then let's talk about
Right.
why we're so concerned.
Right. Well, basically, one of the reasons I brought the display was so that people could see these are the books that were part of the exhibit that was yanked down as a consequence of the County Commission's
And
action.
I'm sure nobody can see that. Maybe we should name a few.
Oh, My Father's Scar, Am I Blue? These are books that are highly, highly regarded. They were part of a display that a student made and had placed in the library. Hundreds of people saw the display. Allegedly, 3 people complained, and the display was taken down. It was later put back up in a more obscure part of the library. But one commissioner took that as an opening to essentially bar any county agency from acknowledging or participating in any way in recognition of Gay Pride Month. You know, June is Gay Pride Month because it recognizes Stonewall as the emblematic beginning of the movement for equality for gay and lesbian people in this country. And there were so many atrocities committed against gay people at every level. And so Stonewall is the place where we said, we fought back and we said no more. And so each June, Pride celebrations happen all over the country. And for years and years, displays just like this have been up in libraries all around the county without comment or problem. But the commissioner who brought this forward has been a long-time anti-gay advocate. She was instrumental in pushing for the repeal of the Hillsborough Human Rights Ordinance that simply said people cannot be discriminated against based on sexual orientation.
That happened before she got in office.
Right, that was before she got in office.
Right.
And the Tampa City Ordinance remains. Tampa City Council members have spoken up. The mayor has spoken up very vigorously in opposition to what the county has done. They've sent an ugly signal to the gay and lesbian community.
The most amazing thing to me, and I was watching a re-air of the vote that took place. It took place in about 3 or 4 minutes
Yeah, less than that.
Less than that.
Yeah.
without any discussion whatsoever on such a
There's one sentence of discussion.
except for Commissioner Castor, who asked, who voiced her concerns about
Intolerance.
Exactly.
and not doing that. But it you know what it looked like? It really looked like people had talked before, which I know is not permitted. You don't usually see a vote like that.
Well, it seemed, different than any other vote that certainly came up before the commissioners that particular day. It usually had at least a few minutes of discussion of each measure. This did pass very fast with, as you said, almost no discussion. And if there indeed was discussion amongst the commissioners about this, there could be some Sunshine Act violations, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I think that would be a better
It-
explanation than what I think. I think they were just so reckless to do some harm, to send this insult to the gay community, which is really an insult to the entire community, that they didn't care what they passed meant. I mean, what on earth does little g, little p mean? This is built into the language that the commissioner who brought it forward. And
I-
I'll tell
I
you
think
what it
that
means
was,
is...
that was a way to say, overall, we don't. We're not just referring to the month where we've suggested this is Gay Pride Month, like we do, Black Heritage or Women's History Month, where we capitalize women in history or those names. But all times during the year. Didn't you get that impression from
Yeah, and
those?
I think it was essentially saying anything that portrays gay people in a positive light, we will bar any county agency from participating in. And that means going into the library and tearing down those kinds of exhibits.
Well, there's been an enormous response from the community.
It's been tremendous.
The columnists in both our daily papers and elsewhere, and the radio stations and TV stations have been really hitting this full force. I brought how many front pages of the A section on the Tribune and so forth. And the amazing thing, I think, also is that you have a Tribune, editorial going. What do you think about the response from the community, Becky?
I have rarely gotten so many calls on one issue as I have from people of all stretches and persuasions from the organization and our members who are just outraged by this policy. This really hits on two fundamental issues. One is freedom of speech, freedom to gather information from a public library. And then the other one is just out and out discrimination against a group of people based on who they are, based on their sexual orientation, with no rational basis.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right.
Curtis.
And I think when you look at the moral basis, I think anytime the government starts to legislate morality, I think we as a country are in a lot of trouble. I think the same arguments were used to say the interracial marriage was immoral, and they used the same context of that to try and outlaw interracial marriage. So I think anytime we try and discriminate or try and use the government to discriminate against a group of people is wrong. And we at the NAACP stand directly behind any violations of civil rights or discrimination.
It's wonderful to see the number of groups that are coming out. We have a caller. Let's see what we have. You're on Speak Up. Hello.
Yes. I'm calling. I have a business that is in, we do work in Tampa Bay, Hillsborough Women's Directory.
Yes.
And I just want to say that this has already impacted my decision whether or not to do business in Tampa Bay. I do an expo annually, a women's expo. And because of this Commission's decision to discriminate against the gay and lesbian community, I've decided to hold my event in Pinellas.
And so you're talking about the pulling away some economic impact.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you for calling. That seems to be rumored in a lot of places. That and in fact, the Chamber of Commerce. Let's talk about that. They did make a statement. It's not terrifically strong, but it's pretty strong for, I think, the Chamber of Commerce to say that that they embrace diversity for the Chamber of Commerce. I think I don't. You're smiling. Tell me, do you think?
Well,
You wish it was stronger.
I wish it were stronger.
Yeah, I do.
I think that the Chamber of Commerce could have said it's not in this area's economic interest to promote intolerance. And I think that's certainly a fact. You see lots of other cities and organizations have been singled out when they've expressed intolerance, and it has an impact in the pocketbook. And I think we're going to see that in this area too.
Oh, I think that's true. I've been all behind this whole Richard Florida, Carnegie Mellon Carnegie Mellon professor of economics who came to town a couple of years ago, got everybody turned on, including the Chamber of Commerce. We did some programming on it. We did some. We actually, I think, taped him and had some. Have replayed it many times. But this whole effort that if you are going to have economic impact, instead of paying companies to come down, what they seem more attracted to is a place that is very welcoming and very warm to all sorts of people. And in particular, there's a huge relationship, as he pointed out, between accepting and encouraging gay population and how much business is done. And he points out, you know, San Francisco, which continues to have good business, in Tucson, and gosh, I can't even remember, there's 5 or 6 cities that he points out that have thrived even in poor economic times, but because they accept all kinds of music, they accept all kinds of people, they have all kinds of theater, and they're very, very open to people. And so I, in fact, went on the web and noticed that there's a paper that he did on the relationship between technology and attracting technology to a community and its openness towards the gay population.
And I think exactly right. I think anytime as a society or as a county we start promoting diversity as a core value, I think that's extremely important. And I think the business community has bought into the having diversity as a core value of how we operate business. I think I take exception to the fact when we try and legislate morality or legislate morality and use our position in government to come out against a group of people based on behavior and nothing else.
Right. Oh, we have another caller. You're on Speak Up.
Yes, ma'am. I just had a couple of comments. First of all, I'm a resident of Hillsborough County, and I'm a constituent of the commissioner who initiated this action. And I just wanted folks to know that she does not speak for everybody in Hillsborough County. And I also want to say that I'm a law enforcement officer, and I work for this community every day, and I serve everyone in this community without regard to their race, sexual orientation, or anything else. And I just think that intolerance and bigotry is wrong in any form, and it violates the principles of our country and the things that I uphold every day of my job.
Thank you so much for calling.
Exactly right.
That was a really nice comment. Speaking of which, if people have a different view, this is public access. You're certainly welcome to come on down and to make programming or ask us to be on another show that we do here, or please call in and we'll take those views, of course. We're open to everybody's point of view, and the American Civil Liberties Union and Equality Florida want to be able to talk to all of you about what they were thinking, and that's why they're here. So, in fact, I wanted to call for, if we could, the reaction that the Equality Florida and this community has had over the vote, which took place, was it 2 weeks ago? You had a town hall meeting and 700 people showed up, and we did have some footage of that, and if we can put it up. Okay, just a second.
So we are really glad that you're here and for this really, really important issue. And I would say that we have got pride back in Hillsborough County. And we're not giving it up again. Wow. You know, our phones have been ringing off the hook, and you know, I look around this room and there are people that fought 15 and more years back to pass the ordinance, the human rights ordinance in the city of Tampa, to fight to get a human rights ordinance passed in the county. And so for all you longtime activists, it's great to see you again. The years have been kind to us, I think. For those of you who are new, we welcome you. And for those of you who have never been called on to stand with the gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender community as our allies, we are proud to stand in this room with you. My name is Nadine Smith, and I'm the Executive Director of Equality Florida. We are your statewide organization, and we fight to make the laws fair, to make this community safe. And while we work statewide, it's important for everybody to know we were born right here in Hillsborough County this is home and we're not going to be driven out. It's important to understand that that is what this is about. People who believe what you would have to believe to do what this county commission has done. They believe that gay people shouldn't exist. That's what they think. And they think if we exist, we should be forced to hide. And if we don't hide in shame, they think that the laws or the customs of society should make it so dangerous for us to be visible that we become invisible. That is what they do. And sometimes they do it with laws, and sometimes they do it with fists, but the intention is always to eliminate us, to make us hide, to make us afraid. And tonight, in record numbers, with overflowing capacity, we've shown them that what they're trying will not work. It's having the exact opposite effect in this community.
That was great.
It was quite a
I
night.
know
It
we're
was quite a
running
night.
that Mary's put together a tape of that evening, and we'll be running that thing in its entirety pretty soon. We'll let you know when it will be
Great.
run so that you can let folks in your organization know. It was interesting. I just wanted to point out once again the Tampa Tribune, I think we ought to thank them for doing gay pride policy deserves no respect. And in terms of the chamber, I was just thinking of something because I looked at what the Tribune had said about the chamber's simple diversity message, and yeah, it wasn't strong. One of the things that's really interesting when you talk in the town hall meeting about fear and intimidation and all of that, I'm very, very clear that sometimes nonprofits and individuals, the county staff, people who are employed by places that the government funds are extremely intimidated to speak up. This
They are.
doesn't mean they aren't thinking it. And the Chamber of Commerce, and I was also a member of the Board of Governors of the Chamber 10 or 12 years ago. I guess I've been around here too long now. I've been a member about everything. But I did want to say, having been in that group, that there's a diversity of people there, and there's also, they've gone through these hoops before where their money was threatened, as we have at Speak Up Tampa Bay and Tampa Bay Community Network, where when voices came on our channels that weren't appreciated,
Right.
our money was taken away,
Right.
and by the commission, and so I think that you won't get a stronger statement from a lot of people because they become intimidated, and I think they're out there. I think there's far more of them out there than you'll even hear from.
You know what, I think that the overwhelming response, I talked to folks at the county, their email crashed from the number of people sending emails. Their fax machines ran out from the number of faxes coming in.
I
They're
understand
really hearing it.
that not only did they get about 2,000 emails through the website, hillsborocounty.org, and they can send to all the commissioners through there, but they had about 2,000 with about 50 or 60 in support of them. Now, of course, the minute I say that, I'm very well aware that the commissioners have the ability to get more of the folks who are calling themselves the prayer warriors, who are sending some emails saying, they did the right thing. But the huge preponderance, 99% or something, is
absolutely.
against what they're doing. And then each of the commissioners have gotten individual ones that have crashed some of their systems and
Right.
bounced emails.
And the
Or
people, oh, go ahead.
Even just the day of the hearing, at the public comments section of the county commission meeting, several people came up to speak in favor of free speech and in favor of tolerance and diversity. There was not one person who spoke in favor of this policy from
Right.
the citizens who were there.
And there were people who showed up, you didn't see this in the commission hearing, but it happened during the early morning comments. There were people who were not there even on this issue when they discovered what the issue was. signed up right away.
Right.
Many of them straight people, and especially parents saying, how dare you decide what my family has access to? I know how to teach my children.
We got another
You're
caller.
exactly right.
You're on the air.
Just wanted to ask about what's next. I know that you talked about the chamber and sort of intimidation. Are they afraid because they get funding from the county? And along the same lines, what about the Convention and Visitors Bureau and our travel and tourism industries? You know, they do all this, hoopla and money spent toward getting NFL Super Bowl and whatnot. They haven't made a statement. Is there going to be pressure applied to the Convention and Visitors and travel industry? They get funding also from county. Are they going to be intimidated?
Thank you. My quick answer is probably yes. What's yours?
Well, I know that there's a lot of pressure being brought to bear. On our website, prideisback.org, we've got a poll that asks people whether or not there should be a boycott or a boycott, basically, economic boycott of Hillsborough County, or a way to spotlight those businesses that take a stand for equality. And a boycott is what we did many years ago when there was the threat of a national boycott of the Tampa area if the Human Rights Ordinance was repealed. And we found it to be a positive way to address the issue. But there's a tremendous amount of pressure from people outside of the area as well as people in the Tampa Bay area who say that they've really got to see the leadership in the community stand up, because I think that these are questions. I know people are contacting the chambers. They are contacting the convention and visitor centers. People are asking questions about what impact this has on Super Bowl and businesses, recruitment of new companies to the area.
I fully expect the NFL, which made such a big fuss in 1991, when they understood
Right.
that the Gasparilla Parade was being hosted by a group that was an all-white male group
Right.
that discriminated against men and women, black men and women, but they were more concerned with the black male, and they did a lot of threatening. I can't imagine that they wouldn't threaten also with this issue.
Well, people should know that the NFL has a really strong diversity policy, a really strong anti-discrimination policy, and what the County Commission has done flies in the face of that. So I think that there's reason for deep concern about the long-range impact of this. As you said in the top of the show, this has made national news. We're getting emails from all over the country. We're getting phone calls from all over the country. We've got people in London, and I think we got some emails from Iceland, of all places. Wow. People who've heard about this and are shocked and outraged by it.
And you just said a strong diversity policy with the NFL?
Right. Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing to me is that the BOCC mandated a very strong diversity policy for the employees of the county. They have to, in fact, here's an upcoming, I just got a fax of this from the county, but there's their diversity training coming up for the staff, employees of the county. James Reed teaches Dealing with Differences, Diversity 2005, and
Perhaps they
I
should
think
be
it's
invited to
mandatory.
Right.
Do the commissioners have to attend?
Well, that's my point. My point is, how is it July 22nd, on Friday, a bunch of employees will go and take diversity training from a BOCC mandated diversity training, and apparently they have a zero tolerance hostile work environment policy, and you have to figure that out of the county employees, just give it the going average and figure 1,000 employees are probably gay, at least. I mean, just look at the regular percentages, and then look at how many more people are gay friendly or have gay people in their family or their friends and so forth. So I just wasn't sure that the BOCC may have also offended its own employees tremendously. Have you heard from the employees of the county?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Lots of calls. Deeply hurt by what the commission has done. I mean, there's anger, but there's also just hurt at the disrespect that this commission showed. In 72 seconds passing a law, they didn't even bother to vet past their own attorneys to see what kind of impact it would have. The fear that it inspired, the books, exhibits being pulled out of a library, that should disturb everyone, regardless of where you are on any variety of issues. You know, what I love about the two organizations side by side is that they've been strong allies time and time again, but they're principled allies. They will stand with you even if they disagree with you on the principle that discrimination is wrong, period. And that's what the Commission doesn't understand. They have a point of view that they wanted to impose. And what they wanted to say was that gay people are less welcome in this community. You are less respected in this community. It's not about taxpayer money. I bet you could stop any commissioner right now, ask them the cost of that exhibit in the library, and not one of them could tell you. You know, because
And did it cost them anything?
no,
Because
it doesn't,
wasn't that
and it's ridiculous. I'm a taxpayer in Hillsborough County. We're all taxpayers in Hillsborough County.
Yeah, and I think Nadine's exactly right, because if you look at Nadine and I side by side, we're the same hue, same texture of hair when I had hair.
Both good looking.
Both good looking. You're exactly right. but I think the discrimination and the intolerance of gay and lesbians speaks volumes to where we're going as a community. Because on the surface, there's no difference between Nadine and I. So when you put a blanket policy out there like that, what you're really doing, you're discriminating against Nadine because of her behavior, and that's wrong. And I think any time an organization takes that stance, I think it's incumbent upon groups like the NAACP and the ACLU to stand aside Nadine and be a strong supporter and say we can't stand for discrimination.
What is the ACLU going to do, if any, or are you not tipping your hand yet?
Well, in some stages of what we're planning to do, it's really too early to say. But we're certainly always working in coalition with Equality Florida. I'm very glad that the NAACP is standing beside the two of us in this too, and we will support and fight this policy in whatever ways we can.
I want to thank you, Becky, for being on. We're going to switch you
thanks.
out in a minute, but we're going to show the viewer audience what took place yesterday.
5,000 strong in downtown Tampa.
5,000 strong. Was it 5,000? Because you know these estimates are all over the place, right?
That's what the police tell us.
The police said it was 5,000, and we did read it was upward of 2,000 in the papers. But let's take a look at some footage that we got. Are we ready yet? Let's roll. Oh, well, we can even comment on this.
You did a great job,
Yeah, it was a tremendous day.
Okay,
It was a
go ahead. I
tremendous
think
day.
we're back on. Go ahead. They're headed towards the Chalora Park.
Right, and people they rang these bells of healing, and there were so many people. There was a family, I think they got on one of the news stations actually, husband and wife and their 2 sons, and they came up. They said they just heard about it 2 hours ago, and they decided as a family that they had to be there.
And this was was that a rainbow flag? Or a
Yeah.
banner? What was that banner?
Oh, there were so many different ones. There were so many religious groups represented. There were the straight but not narrow crowd was there,
Right.
with their signs and T-shirts.
I heard there was a sign there. A friend of mine called me from the march and said there was a sign there that said, all storms are followed by a rainbow.
Oh wow!
And I think that was it. There's something interesting.
Well, you know, from the podium, we really encouraged people not to make this about one single commissioner. The vote was
Well,
6-1, first
right.
of all. But beyond that, this is a moment where the entire community has an opportunity to stand up. And it was wonderful to have so many straight allies there. Actually, I don't even think it's right to call them allies. They understood this to be their fight just as much as anybody else's, and they wanted to make sure they were on the front line.
We all know the Niemöller quote, don't we? You know, they came for the
exactly first.
they came for them first, and then I didn't stand up, and by the time they got to me, you know, and so forth.
Yeah, there was a terrific turnout.
And we also have to recognize the people.
But it really is important.
Is this Ashley or Franklin or?
I think it's Kennedy.
Oh,
I think
down
this is
Kennedy.
folks living down Kennedy.
Well, that's really that was really something and energizing.
amazing.
And you had 35,000 people over in St. Pete at
Oh,
the
yeah.
Gay Pride
And
event.
this was the
and
heart-
you couldn't get them to come
Yeah.
to Tampa because why would they come?
Well,
Well,
you know, there are a lot of
I'm
people
kidding.
that until this is resolved, I know there's a lot of people that say they're not coming across the bridge until this is repealed. But the heart of the St. Pete Pride, and kudos to the folks who put that wonderful event on, but the heart of it was people reacting to what's happened in Hillsborough and sending support.
I want to welcome Paul Werner, who just joined us from the First United Church of Tampa. Welcome. I'm glad you could make it. And I understand that the First United Church has made a statement as well about this. Can you elaborate?
That's correct. First United Church of Tampa is a United Church of Christ congregation. We've been in Hillsborough County since 1885. We're the descendants of the Pilgrims, actually, so we've been in North America for almost 400 years.
Well, then you own the place.
Yeah.
And you've got to stop this.
I wish I could by myself, but I can't, unfortunately. But basically, it's our church really stresses the fact that it's extravagantly welcoming and radically inclusive, and we feel that this policy is not something that would be a welcoming thing, and therefore we have issued a press release. We've written a letter to the county commission and also have basically a resolution which we publicize saying that we do pretty much, the strongest word I can use is condemn the county commission's action.
That's great. Thank you. We got another call. You're on the air.
Yes, ma'am. I only have two things to say.
Okay.
One, Pride is back, and two, Nadine rocks. That's it.
Nadine
Dan.
always rocked. Nadine always rocked. You know, I was
You know,
looking.
this is great. I just want to say yours was probably the first. You were the first organization to send us a resolution, and it was really powerfully written. And we've gotten so much support from the faith community, who frankly are just tired of having the far right be the only voice of faith on this issue. So it's been tremendous. You've opened the gates for a lot of faith organizations to step up.
That's great. Yeah, people kind of tend to think that the religious community would be with the other side. And
Not at all.
I
Not at
can't
all.
imagine that would be so. And not in any way. The one I was taught was the God would have never discriminated. I also went online, and someone did me a favor and sent me over this diversity policy from the county. And there's a form here that you can fill out listing why you feel discriminated against. And interestingly, even though we know that that Hillsborough County repealed their human rights, it says race, color, sex, religion, disability, political affiliation, age, retaliation, national origin, marital status, and the last one is other.
Other.
So I thought, well, you know, isn't that, they have a form, they have a procedure, they have a policy, and so it's very interesting to see this go down, although I think what they're trying to say is that that it doesn't have anything to do with discriminating, just not promoting. However, the ordinance didn't say not promoting, it said not accepting.
Well, it said
Did
not
it not
recognizing.
recognizing? That's
participating.
Exactly.
I tell you,
How
that's
bad
the
is
deepest.
that?
That's the deepest insult in all this, and I know that commissioners are backpedaling on what they've done once the public response became visible, and saying, oh no, we weren't attacking the gay community. What we've struck as a neutral position. No, a neutral position would have been not to issue this ordinance and just treat the gay and lesbian community in the same way. They issue proclamations all the time. You know, we have a resort casual week. You know, we have Southern Heritage and Confederacy Week. We have all, you know, there's a list of maybe 150 different, you know, proclamations.
Although I
that
couldn't
they,
get them to sign Media Democracy Week, but
Well, we're, you know, which is a shame. I think people ought to start bombarding them with Intellectual Freedom Week and Free Speech Week and Civil Liberties Week and Diversity Week. I mean, the irony was, I think before they did this vote, they were given some sort of diversity award, and I wish perhaps if they had read
county
it,
was?
yeah, if they had read it, perhaps they would have, you know, voted differently. But you know, I'll tell you,
I find very interesting because they used the same argument, and many people did, when we were the center of controversy, when public access television was the center of controversy. And of course, we've done, you know, there's been so many in the community have come here and made good programming and tried to show how important and what kind of good programming could be on the channels. But one of the things that came up, and of course the controversy was over someone who put a nude woman on their show, which they were entitled to do under the First Amendment. And as I said many times, I really am not fond of the show, but I am really fond of the fact that one doesn't shut down free speech, and you don't shut down everybody's voice, because I didn't like one of those voices, so it doesn't really matter to me. But one of the things everyone used was this thing about children, protecting children. And what I see often happens is the minute you hear this is for the protection of women or children, it's like your ears better go way up. You better tune up and listen to this. And I find this kind of interesting. And so I'd like to recommend to every viewer a book I read. I think my kids were really tiny, and it came out by Planned Parenthood, and it talked about how to talk to your children about sex. And one of the things it pointed out was the percentage of homosexuals, and it pointed out that, you know, you have a likelihood of having a child who could be homosexual. So right from very early on, it's very important that you tell them about this and you tell them it's okay. And so it's not that complicated to explain, which was one of the issues brought up. I don't want to explain this poster. Well, why not? Why wouldn't you explain that poster, and why wouldn't you say, you know, the majority of the people that get married and fall in love are, you know, a boy and a girl, but sometimes that's not the way it is. And that's it, and that's all you have to say. You don't have to go crazy.
I don't think anybody believes that any of the commissioners have difficulty talking to their children about their core values, their beliefs, their religious philosophies, and their take on you know, different segments of society.
But the sad thing is, if a
they're just
person
hiding
doesn't,
behind that.
if they don't open up to that, they're going to hurt a whole other generation of people. That's a big fear that I have, that people are not seeing, that you need to be open-minded about that, because you do have children.
I can speak a little bit on that. The County Commission's policy, basically, they're making it sound like, oh, it's just that we're just going to abstain from it, so it's not good, it's not bad. But if you look at the mean-spiritedness and the cruelty of it, by purposely making a law difficult to repeal, it shows that it's a spiteful and cruel thing. And that's me personally.
And that was
I
very
see it
quick
like that.
action. I mean, that was one vote and then the next. I mean, and the vote was actually
it's so
5-1
fast.
and then 6-1.
And people think, oh, well, we're just not going to acknowledge gay pride, so gay people can exist, but quietly, and just like it's some under-the-rug thing. And representing someone in the religious community, it's like, you know, churches make these blanket statements, well, we welcome everyone. You know, well then if a gay or lesbian person shows up at church and then is cast away or listens to a sermon that is homophobic or oppressive, then that's not really a true statement. And the mainline denominations have various welcoming groups. For example, the United Church of Christ has an open and affirming program, and it was the 15th General Synod of the UCC, I think in 1985, passed a resolution saying we encourage our churches to create open and affirming policies that specifically state that lesbian, gay, bisexual, and now transgender people are welcome in the church community. It's a specific and intentional welcome, saying you are welcome here the way you are. And if you go to ucctampabay.org, you'll see information about the open and affirming churches of the UCC. Also, the statements that our church has put out as far as the press release and the letter to the County Commission. And I really would like to see the interfaith community work really closely on this.
That would be great.
Oh, yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think the intolerance is a real key, because 45 years ago, the intolerance against people the same hue as Nadine and I, well, that, you know, we're not racist. We just don't want you to drink out the same water fountains as we drink out of. We just don't want you to go to the same schools. We're not racist. We're not saying that we're intolerant of you. We just don't want you around us. And I think that you could draw the same parallel with that vote the other day, was that we want you to go hide in the corner. We're not saying not be gay. We just don't want it out in the open like that. So I think you could draw that same parallel against people 45 short years ago, against people the same hue as Nadine and I, that we're not intolerant of race. We just don't want to drink out the same water fountains as we drink out
And you can
of.
go before that and see women as well.
Exactly.
We have nothing against you, but you can't vote, own property, and do a bunch of other
Yeah,
things.
and we're talking 45 short years ago, or even 35 short years ago, that people, African American people were denied rights or denied civil rights based mainly on the color of the skin.
And those decisions were made by people in power, in authority, pillars of the community, and what have you.
Now, I picked up Saturday's paper and was amazed that a brochure got in there now. Beyond this poster, that one's very distressing to me, because that looks like now censorship for sure. If you can't show the others as more than discrimination, a gay flyer, and of course, I think when I was over by before I became Equality Florida, you invited a bunch of us to go to a retreat.
Right.
And we listened to the parents
You didn't
and
invite
children.
I didn't know you then,
Long
Chris.
ago.
Next time
Long
we'll
ago.
get you there.
It's many, many years ago. We listened to PFLAG parents and children who, had an awful time, not only going through just being a teenager, but going through these questions of their sexuality. And this brochure is about that. Is that
Right,
correct? Did
absolutely.
you see the brochure at all?
Yeah, she references some of the resources. For example, Also for Gay Youth in Sarasota, a fantastic program that provides services for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and questioning youth and their parents. PFLAG, Parents and Friends of Lesbians and Gays, fantastic organization. I happen to serve on the national board, but it's a tremendous resource, often a life-saving resource for young people who are dealing with their sexuality and realizing that they have no support system. For everyone who says, I don't want to have to talk to my children about these issues, believe me, if your children are going to school, they're hearing the most ugly kind of taunting of other students based on their perceived sexual orientation.
And of course, we all learned that their suicide rates so
Through the roof.
phenomenal.
Absolutely.
And so they need all the support
Yeah,
that
I
they
think
possibly can, and even I believe the school systems understand that, and counselors now counsel kids or refer them, or help their families.
Well, one of our leading legislative initiatives has been Safe Schools, because what we hear from students is that the relentless bullying that many students face, but is particularly focused on students based on sexual orientation and gender identity, it leads to dropout, it leads to suicide, it leads to all these high risk, all this high risk. Those kind of flyers being available to young, to teenagers, to young adults, are often life-saving resources, and it's just appalling to think that she finds that objectionable. She should find the suicide rate among young gay and lesbian youth objectionable. She should find the bullying in schools objectionable. She should find the fact that there's no policy protecting students objectionable, but not the fact that there are very few resources, and that's one of them.
One of the things we were going to look at as well is that, and I think you had pretty young people there yesterday at the march,
yeah.
Did you not?
There were lots of parents
Well,
brought
plus
their kids.
you also had people with baby carriages and little children.
Lots of students.
running around.
There were students that came from Orlando, Tallahassee, Gainesville. There were lots of parents who brought their children with them. It was quite a
I think
festive
they're
picnic
going to run a little
atmosphere.
bit of it in a minute, and we can talk about it, because I don't think there's any sound with it. Also, I was just I just ran through the papers and thought, everybody should do this if they haven't, because I know the most well-read part of most papers is the letters to the editor, but they've been phenomenal in the Times and the Trib, and some of them have been so thoughtful. The letters are just something everybody should read, and I think it just happened that there was a column by this one, Louis Vieira from the Trib. I don't know if you saw it, but A Compassionate America welcomes gays and lesbians. To me, Christianity is about Mother Teresa hugging the lepers, not a commissioner, and he names one, giving a political smackdown to gays and lesbians. And he puts his name there. But
I'm gonna have to catch up on all of this.
You're going to have to catch up on it. And then what is this? Today's Times, with all that went on, they have the quote is 2,000 March Against Counties Pride. And it's just churchgoers or the gathering of people. It's just been a phenomenal event. I mean, you do feel that sometimes you need a kick in the butt like that to get everybody going again, don't you?
Exactly. I think
Right?
Exactly right.
Well, you know, I just want to point out that right now, while we're sitting here talking, just a few miles away, there are some 200, 300 people gathered at a church organizing the next phase of Pride is Back. The rally wasn't the culmination, it was really the launch. This is a long-term effort, and people are committed to doing what's necessary to turn this policy around.
Are you going to tell us a few things? The only thing I do recollect reading was that now, instead of just trying to correct this problem, that now there's going to be an effort to actually go back and get the human rights ordinance put back into Hillsborough County, which should have never been let go.
Absolutely.
Is that going to be one of them?
Absolutely. You know, this is a community that daily more and more people are standing with us, recognizing that discrimination is wrong, and the laws ought to reflect that. They should not be intended to single out and insult and dehumanize any segment. So we're going to repeal this ban, and we're going to push for full inclusion in equal protection in Hillsborough County for everyone.
That's fabulous. Are there things that you want to be sure that viewers who are listening to the program know they can do? I know they can go to, and I think we generated some graphics so they could see www.prideisback.org. And you've all mentioned, I think you mentioned yours. But are there some other things that people who might not go to that website or, can be doing that can help?
Well, I think people need to support the organizations they see standing up, NAACP, ACLU, the churches, Equality Florida. Become a member, join. It was only a week ago today that we planned all of this, and to have it come together so marvelously has been a testament to the people willing to really volunteer and step up.
And your list.
Yeah, well, and the fact that, we salute our members. They really have made it possible.
Your list and the ability to forward and forward
and
and
forward
forward
and forward.
and forward.
And, we came up with these shirts right after called Band in Hillsborough. And these were all donated. Someone said, hey, we should get this logo out there. And then we wanted a positive one as well.
Is this the other one I have?
And that's the Pride is Back logo. These are things that people just came out of the woodwork.
Let's not do it.
They came out of the woodwork to say, I've got some
I'll hold
talent
that
to. I've got some talent to give. In fact, there's a group now called they're called Artists, or they're called Art Rage, Artists United Against Bigotry. They've got a whole slate of events. Planned in the coming months and weeks. It's been a real grassroots response, and it has been absolutely amazing. So get involved. Join the organizations. We keep prideisback.org updated every day with new statements of support, new opportunities to volunteer, and new events that are coming. So get involved.
Is there going to be an effort to go and educate the commissioners who voted in this manner?
Absolutely.
Besides the fact that they're hearing from everybody, I don't like it, I don't like it, I don't like it. How are we? NAACP going to do something? What are we doing?
I think the stance of NAACP is we're standing alongside Nadine and Equality Florida in the stance that discrimination on all fronts is wrong. And for all those out there who think that the civil rights movement is over, this is a frontal assault in 2005 that lets everyone know that discrimination is at the forefront of what we do in America, whether it's discrimination against African Americans, discrimination against gay and lesbian groups. It's out there in 2005 because who's to say that it's going to stop at gay and lesbian groups? Because the thing, once you start legislating morality, there's no end to it.
Once you start eroding civil rights, you're
Exactly.
eroding it all the way, which is why I
You're
mentioned
exactly right.
Martin Niemöller. Niemöller? Right?
In yesterday's St. Pete Times, there was an article about how the people who live in District 4, many people actually like Rhonda Storms, and they quoted like someone saying, homosexuality is an abomination against the Lord, And what happens is the media will zero in on what is the Christian opinion about this, and it's automatically the right-wing fundamentalist discriminatory thing that is what's highlighted. If I hear the word, oh, I'm going to go. If I hear someone say, I'm going to go to a Christian bookstore, I automatically know in my mind it's going to be it's not going to be a bookstore where you'll find books about standing in solidarity with those who are poor, oppressed, and marginalized. You're not going to find books like that there. If I hear Christian bookstore, it's going to be something else.
Well, wasn't Jesus all those things?
Exactly right. And
sorry,
I just find the religious community, most of the Christians out there are either not fulfilling the gospel message, they're not doing what Jesus did, or they are trying their best to be supportive. And unfortunately, the right wing is well financed. And if you say abortion or gay rights, that raises money. That works for them.
See, I don't know.
Well, I find that fascinating. There's a political consultant in town who mentioned to me once that sometimes you view the Republican Party as being more conservative and more religious than the Democratic Party, but if you really looked at the principal teachings of Christianity and Christ, the Democrats believe feed the poor, help your brother, take care, do health care for the elderly, take care. All the things that we're taught are really more democratic, almost, principles. And I think we all ought to not buy into the division about that when they put religion in the middle of the whole political process. It's ridiculous because you have religious people on both ends of it and so forth. We only have a minute or two left, and so if I give you 30 seconds apiece to say something we didn't hit today, why don't you? Curtis?
Oh, wow. We at the Hillsborough County branch of the NAACP would like to invite all members of our society to come out and visit with us. We have our executive committee meetings on the first Thursday, and our general membership meetings on the third Thursday of every month. So please come out and join. The fight still exists.
Nadine?
Just everybody, you're invited to be part of this. PrideIsBack.org is your gateway to getting involved. 813-870-3735 is our telephone number. And it's time this is a problem for all of Hillsborough County. We need all of Hillsborough County standing with us.
You got about 3 seconds left.
First United Church of Tampa welcomes you if you're gay or lesbian or whatever else.
I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in, and see you next week.
Is this the point where we hug and kiss?
We do.